administration. It was my duty to run the communication process. And therefore, I find it very odd that a man that I respect so much, Mr. Bayo Ononuga, will come around for political reasons, for propaganda reasons, to say that the Jonathan administration was a useless administration. No. That is not just an insult to President Jonathan. I take it personally as the man whose duty it was to speak for that administration. There were other spokespersons who have promoted themselves beyond their level, but that was my primary assignment. And I say that I took an oath in 2011 to defend that administration, and I remain faithful to that oath. And I say with all seriousness that Mr. Bayo Ononuga is unfair to President Jonathan. He is wrong in the propaganda that he has put out. He may have issues with Professor Jerry Ghana, who is a chieftain of the party, who made a statement in Mina that President Jonathan is going to be the next presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. He could have stayed there, and he will have been in order, disagreeing with Professor Jerry Ghana. But to say that there were no meaningful achievements under President Jonathan, no, he's wrong. He's absolutely wrong.
Wow.
And this is my correction. Now, President Jonathan is acclaimed all over the world 10 years after his administration as a Democrat, as a man who moved Nigeria forward. That's even the international community saying that. Since he left office in 2015, he has been invited everywhere, whether it is Malawi or it's Ghana or it's Gambia. So he has become an international citizen. That in itself should tell Mr. Ononuga and those around him in the villa that, look, this is a man who has achieved, who has remained relevant. There are other Nigerian leaders who will not be invited anywhere, who will not be accommodated in decent company. But President Jonathan, by conceding defeat in 2015, and by saying that the blood of every Nigerian is important, more than his own, has played a major part in history. But to the details,
I agree with that.
Government,
I agree with that 100%.
The Sovereign Wealth Fund, we left $1 billion. Exchange rate was between 170 to 198. The foreign reserve was about 42 billion. Nigeria's economy in 2014 was rebased, and Nigeria was recognized as one of the major emerging economies. In fact, we overtook South Africa in terms of the quality of our economy. Railway, it was President Jonathan who started the railway project. Rotimi Amechi, when he was minister, himself acknowledged it. Power, the revolution in the power sector, reform in the power sector, was the handiwork of President Goodluck Jonathan. Okay, the APC government that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they came now, they brought, what's his name now? Muhammadu Buhari as president of Nigeria. Muhammadu Buhari destroyed everything, either in railway or power. The legacy of President Jonathan was, driven aground because.
So let me just stop there and put things in perspective. Okay? The presidency of Jonathan was riddled with so many inefficiencies. You're talking about the reserves. We all know what was happening at the time. We all knew that the subsidy scam was entrenched. We all knew what happened. You left almost 22 local governments to Boko Haram. Insecurity was a big issue. Maybe he wasn't involved in the insecurity problem, but then he didn't solve it. There was an actual plunder of the economy. Things were not going on well. The reserve went to an high of $60-something billion. As at the time when he was leaving, it was already down. Okay? It was already down, it was lower. And again, the problem people have, foreign reserves under Jonathan, the problem people had with Jonathan was that he wasn't in charge of his government. He wasn't in charge of his government. And that was a big problem.
Because they were more interested in, embarrassing President Jonathan. President Jonathan established 14 new federal universities, 166 Amajiri schools. The APC government, after 2015, could not even maintain the Amajiri schools. So the Naira, as I said, was also very stable. So Mr. Ononuga, with due respect, is playing politics. He's dispensing propaganda.
Fair enough, yeah.
He's not talking to the point. He's a man that I respect, but our government proved to be better than the APC government. And this is why now you have Nigerians, other political parties saying they want President Jonathan back.
No. The Nigerians are not saying they want President Jonathan back. That stuff is just being floated by PDP guys. And again, with respect to the reserve, I'm sorry, you're not being truthful on that one. Look at what he said here. In 2010, President Jonathan inherited a total of 66 billion, of which 46 billion was in foreign reserves and 20 billion was in the noble but abused excess crude oil account. By 2015, when the people democratically removed him from office, the foreign reserve has fallen below 30 billion. And the excess crude oil has been depleted to 2 billion. Despite the fact that Jonathan had one of the best revenue generation in the account of presidency. Look at it. The presidency added that from 2010 to 2013, crude oil sold for an average of 100 barrels. As of today, crude oil is selling for around 60-something. Yet by 2014, the government struggled to pay its workers. A lot of workers were being owed. The reserve was already dwindling as at the time when Buhari got in. Again, Buhari has his own problem. I'm not saying he did what was right. I'm not saying he handled the economy well. We were going for a rock bottom. And that's why people had to vote Jonathan out. So you don't come to TV and start trying to rewrite history. Okay? Because as at that time, things were already changing. Things were really bad.
In Malawi, they have brought back Mutharika. Mutharika is 85 years old. The country could not find its direction. They said Mutharika should come back. In Ghana, they have brought back President John Mahama, to come and rescue the country. Nigerians are saying, bring back Jonathan. There's even a group that says, bring back our Jonathan.
No, we don't want him. He already has his own fair shot, and he messed it all up.
Now, that may be an issue for the APC government, but revisionism will not be accepted from Mr. Ononuga. President Goodluck Jonathan made his contribution. He left a very strong legacy, and we were part of that. And I'm not speaking from a partisan perspective. Look, look at the people that President Jonathan had. Additional moved from being Minister of Agriculture, that's Akinwumi Additional, to become president of AFDB. And he represented Nigeria well there. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was one of the superstars in our government. And she's there at the WTO. Okay, I'm here with you at Arise News. Whatever you think of me.
Producer says we love you.
Well, no, whatever you people think of me, I'm not too sure you treat me well. But
Look at the way Rufai is watching.
have so many people, who are out of that government and are doing well, who are the stars in the APC government, from Buhari to President Tinubu. So let us be realistic. It's okay. People can make their choices. If President Jonathan wants to run, fine. Mr. Onanuga says he can run. But to put down another government to make your own government look good, no, I think that's cheap propaganda. That's not acceptable, in my view.
I'm not surprised that people like Mr. Bayo and Onuga have started attacking a Goodluck Jonathan that has not even openly come out to declare that he will run. Because what has been Mr. Bayo and Onuga's job all this while in this government? It's been an attack personnel. Just attack people. He said, Mr. Bayo and Onuga, that I went through his Twitter page that has not issued a single statement about the killing in Kwara. Let me tell you about what happened in Kwara. There was a big protest yesterday that was not covered by mainstream media. It was covered by BBC Yoruba. In Okeode, in Kwara, bandits had ravaged the town. People were taking buses to flee the town because of the activities. I saw a video, Ayo, of a woman crying beside the dead body of her husband and her husband's brother that the bandits killed. After the mini protest, the villagers blocked the road, and after protesting, they were not still sure of anything that was going to happen to them. They started getting into buses and fleeing. The governor talks about how scared he is for people and around there, how helpless he feels. Mr. Bayo Onuga has not issued one statement. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've not seen it at least. Maybe I might be wrong. I admit I might be wrong. He's not made it front burner. For them, it's about politics of Jonathan that has not even spoken. And then he goes to berate Jonathan. The facts are there. If you ask an average night, will your life not better under Jonathan than what the APC, the lies they sold to you that they have not achieved? You say, oh, he got in there with 66 billion in the foreign reserves. He got to 36 billion. What was inflation under Jonathan compared to the rigmarole of inflation we had here? What was the economic prospect?
Again, I'm not trying to belittle whatever. I mean, you can support whoever you want to support. But let me tell you the truth about Jonathan's government. Okay? The problem was that we were actually heading to the rock bottom. It took Buhari months for him to even understand that he also was also a problem, because it was handed over a comatose economy, which Buhari himself then went on to destroy further. Okay, but for you guys to come in here and like Jonathan was this El Dorado president, or that Jonathan was doing what he should do, no. Jonathan was clueless as it comes. You can always argue for or against, but I'm telling you, if you're asking people were their lives better under Jonathan or versus under Buhari, of course their life was better under Jonathan, but it was also one of the most reckless decisions that Jonathan took under his presidency that has led us to this state. Plus, also, it was the reckless decision that Buhari took under his own presidency that has also led us to this state. So you can as well say, oh, things were not that bad under Jonathan. Why? Because he was taking money from the reserves to cover for his own lack of clue. And that was what was happening. That was really what was happening. Tinubu can equally say, you know what, I'm not going to stress myself. I'll just leave the subsidy. I'll leave the Forex the way it is. And everybody will be fine. But at the end of the day, someone has to come out and pay the price. Someone has to do the reforms. Someone has to make things to be done the right way. And that is what Tinubu is doing. So again, these are basic economics. These are basic factual stuffs. At this point, I'm like a broken record. If Jonathan has done well, forget about propaganda. Forget about what APC was doing in 2014, 2015. Jonathan would have been returned. He failed woefully. Jonathan was not in charge of his government. So you can always say, oh, was your life better? Yeah, of course, your life will be better because Obasanjo had saved up up money in the reserves for Jonathan. And Jonathan then started what? Depleting it. Where's Alison Madueke today? And again, everybody talks about Femi Adeshina also, or is it Femi Adeshina, the agri minister. Yeah, the guy did well. He's one of the ministers that I could say under Jonathan's tenure delivered to the people. And you can give Jonathan the credit for that. Nobody's going to take away from Jonathan's achievement. The biggest achievement of Jonathan remains INEC reforms and him handing over to a civilian government, handing over to another civilian government without any riot, without any rancor, and that has earned him that title of a statesman. But to come and say things were better under Jonathan, just because people were cooking the books, just because people were drawing from the reserve, is disingenuous.
It's in the same Jonathan days we had 9%. You complain, yes, there was corruption. Oh, you mentioned Diezania and all of that. You act like there's no corruption in this government. Till today,
nobody's saying there's no corruption in this government. All we're saying is that you cannot just, try and whitewash a government that was a failure just because your colleague served in that government. Jonathan's government, for the most part, was a failure, except in the area of INEC and the area of Agric.
That's what happened to Beta Edu. You act like we don't even live in this country.
Yeah, fair enough.
The complaint there was Jonathan couldn't.
Beta Edu should have been prosecuted. I agree. Beta Edu should be prosecuted. But again, I'm saying that the discussion here is that Jonathan's presidency was a big challenge.
Tackling security. I've talked about Kwara. Is it not in this country they killed a lot of people in Jos? So the so-called sanctimonious message that Mr. Ononuga wrote. The question is, how are they better than even the Jonathan there that they condemned? So you see, that's why Nigerian fail us. It's been a litany of woes, both the PDP that failed, the APC that failed. And in the midst of the failure, the standards are now so low that they keep challenging themselves. Now me fail pass, now you fail pass. Because for him to compare APC that is a failure to another failure, so it's a graduation scale of who is failing. And that's why we have hospital system that can't save the life of Somi. We have police that can't react. And Somi was being killed. So this is the joke we have made a country. Happy birthday to Nigeria at 65. Let's continue.
Story. So there's a new account of what happened to that Arise TV host. So I just want to hear from the police force themselves. Hopefully now...
regarding the circumstances surrounding the incident, to set the record straight, some Udnom, armed robbers specifically, gained access into unique apartment where Somi lives. A twin 3-story 18-flat apartment around the Girishiri end of Katampe under Mabushi divisional area. At this point in time, 2 guards were on duty, security men. These are private guard. And one of them, who had the courage to challenge, sustained a gunshot. Under this condition, the panic that will have resulted from this kind of environment. Somi actually occupied an apartment on the topmost floor of the building.
Wow.
And out of the fear, she jumped down from that 3rd story, the top floor. The consequences is what we have seen. It's so sad, so unfortunate.
Well, have you...
At last, this rescue was ready to the command control room. Policemen moved to the scene. What they could see, the unconscious body of Somi on the floor. They picked her there and then and took her to my Tama General Hospital, where the doctor on duty tried as much as possible to see whether they can resuscitate her using the CPR. It's unfortunate. He couldn't make it. And that was the story. But what are we doing at our end here? We've set up a specific investigation team headed by the Deputy Commissioner of Police Investigation, with all the tactical components required to unravel the whole situation with a view to tracking down the culprit responsible for this dastardly act. The leads we are getting, we're already working on it. No stone will be left unturned to ensure that the perpetrators are tracked and brought to justice. And the result of the investigation will be made known to Nigeria. That is the situation for now.
Okay, so apparently that was not the story that Arise TV gave us. The story was that the police said they had no fuel. And again, what they also said was that when she eventually drove herself, the whole thing wasn't well. It didn't make sense, the first story. Then the other story was that she drove herself to the hospital, and then the hospital rejected her. Again, when in the age of social media where you say something and then the whole thing, moves so fast and then you can track the truth. Now, still on the Arise TV news, Showore is saying that the first thing that struck me about the FCT when he was interviewed on Arise TV wasn't his word, but the plethora of our words. Again, these are just unnecessary distraction. Okay? Carefully arranged behind him. Nigerian national symbol of empty recognition, and yet in front of those plague, he sat to ignorantly announce that armed robber operated in the heart of Abuja for 1.5 hours without any police intervention. As if that disgrace wasn't enough, he capped his period briefing with the most ridiculous conclusion that Somi, the Arise new producer, was rushed to the hospital, but doctors could not revive her after performing CPR. I couldn't help but ask, so there is no ambulance at hand to provide proper emergency care before arriving? That's a valid question. Yeah, because really when you have policemen go for rescue mission, they should be tasked with performing CPR. If the CPR they performed was not working, or maybe they met her cold, at that point, then it's a different thing, especially in a city where the minister could spend 39 billion to refurbish an event center. And upon arrival at the hospital, was CPR really the best treatment available? I understand it was a damning display as it sat comfortably throughout the enunciating interview, not just of failure, but of how deeply unserious and broken the security
regarding the circumstances,
architecture and the medical emergencies are. You understand? Is CP Wale Ajao served in a proper police force, it would have known that he would have been fired the very minute he concluded that embarrassing interview, if not even before. Well, that's the point. Well, someone is saying that it thrives at exploiting tragedies to score cheap political point. Instead of offering solution, it rushed to the grandstand and insult institutions. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. And again, why is it that they've not been able to apprehend the hoodlums? Why is it that they've not been able to apprehend the hoodlums as of today? That's crazy. But anyway, it is what it is. That's Nigeria for you, and that's the story. Now, someone is comparing it to what happened here when you had the FBI.
We have the watch.
Respond to the shooter of Charlie Kirk within few hours. I think within few days, right? The second day or the third day, that became the killer was apprehended. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theory surrounding the killer of this guy, but then the question is, this woman that died, number one, okay, the suggestion was that you have armed robbers, robbing for 1.5 hours, and that's crazy. That's crazy. Why would you have people robbing for 1.5 hours and nothing could actually be done? Then secondly, also, I think in panic, the lady jumped, which was a very, very, costly mistake. I mean, and it's just quite unfortunate. But But that's what we have as of now, and that's the latest update.